But we'd like to focus your phone calls in this last half hour. We'll go to the phones here in just a minute. Focus your phone calls on the Tea Party challenges to incumbents for the Senate in particular. Your kind of observations, your feelings about that, what you think might happen, why you think that. There are any number of senators. I mean, Thad Cochran is one of them in Mississippi, Mary Landrieu in Louisiana, Mark Pryor in Arkansas, Mark Begich up in Alaska. You got a number of Democratic senators that are very vulnerable. The Democrats are defending, 20-some seats, about a third of the seats, of course, up every 2 years in the Senate. And the Republicans are defending, somewhere around a dozen. And the Democrats are defending a couple of dozen seats. And about 15 of those are considered vulnerable. Only 2 of the Republican incumbents are considered vulnerable to incumbent or to a primary or to general election challenges. So it's a good sort of landscape for Republicans if they want to take over the Senate. And again, it's not just a matter of taking over the Senate. It's the matter of taking over the Senate with conservatives. This isn't about Republican, Democrat, because as we've already talked about today, we can have as much of a problem with Republicans. So this isn't about party affiliation. This is about principle, and this is about conviction. So we'll take calls on that topic, 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. Now, just as a palate cleanser, I'm going to get ready to play you a soundbite that has to do with the Cliven Bundy situation. But just as a palate cleanser, we'll just kind of do this just kind of for fun. The setting is the top of the 11th inning, playing at the Colorado Rockies, San Francisco Giants, bases loaded, 3-2 count, Hector Sanchez at the plate.
And he drives it into right center field, hit a ton. This baby is way back, out of here.
Little grand slam home run for the Giants and went on to win that game 8-6. Now, Cliven Bundy, we talked about him yesterday. As far as I can tell, ladies and gentlemen, I am the only conservative in America that's defended him. As far as I can tell, I mean, everybody has abandoned him. They've jumped ship. They've taken the liberal construction of his words and run with it, accusing him of being a racist. Sean Hannity saying all kinds of nasty things about him. Glenn Beck saying all kinds of nasty things about him. As far as I can tell, I am the only conservative in America that's come to his defense. Because what Cliven Bundy was saying yesterday is the same thing that Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan has said for 40 years up until the day he died, that government welfare has been destroying the black family. That was Moynihan's point back in the 60s, and the more time passes, the more abundant evidence we have that welfare is corrosive, it is toxic, it eats away at human character, it eats away at self-reliance, it eats away at discipline, it eats away at commitment, it eats away at hard work, it eats away at the family structure, it eats away at marriages, it destroys everything it touches. You know, we spent $20 trillion fighting poverty. We got more of it today than we did when we started. And what do we have? We have broken families as a result, shredded, destroyed, black children growing up without fathers in the home, black mothers without the help and the provision and the protection and the provision of a husband. I mean, it's just been horrible. And we as a culture are now reaping this huge whirlwind of crime in minority communities. And a lot of the crime in America, this isn't racist because we care about black victims. Who are the primary victims of black crime? It's blacks. Blacks are the victims, primary victims of black crime. And so we don't want anybody to be the victim of crime. We don't care who the perpetrator is. We don't care what their skin color is. We don't want anybody to be the victim of a crime. But we're seeing, because of this rootlessness, the lack of a father presence in the home, the lack of restraint, the lack of modeling, the economic destruction that's been worked by the policies of this current president and his administration, just creating this sense of hopelessness, despair, and violence in minority communities. And what Cliven Bundy was saying is exactly the same thing. Look, this is the government's doing. What you see happening in the black family, the destruction, the decay, the deterioration, that is all the government's doing. And it's not just a minority thing. It's not just a black thing. We're seeing now exactly the same thing filtering into the white community, because it doesn't matter what color your skin is. Everybody's flesh is the same. everybody is just as fallen as his neighbor. So there's nothing that immunizes people based on the color of their skin from the corrosive effects of these kind of dynamics. Hang on a second. Pulled my earbud out again. So nobody's exempt from this, and the white community is experiencing now the out-of-wedlock birth rate in the white community now is pushing 30%. The overall out-of-wedlock birth rate is 41%. In the black community, it's a catastrophic 73%. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, this is a human tragedy. You can't overestimate this. This is a human tragedy that 73% of black babies, if they are lucky enough to be born, if they can draw their first breath before Planned Parenthood gets to them and kills them, if they're fortunate enough to draw their first breath, 73% of them are growing up in an environment with no father to be an example for them, to love them, to tuck them in at night, to hold them in his strong arms, to read books to them, to show young boys what it means for a husband to love his wife, to have young daughters growing up in that environment, to learn what it means to have a father that loves them and is faithful to their mother and gives them an example of what to look for in a husband. So they're growing up with this immense poverty, this spiritual poverty, this emotional poverty. You know, it just breaks my heart to see this. It ought to break all of our hearts. We don't want that for anybody, especially for vulnerable young children. And this is what Cliven Bundy was saying. He said it's all the government. That's what he said. And he wasn't saying slavery is better. He wasn't saying that. He wasn't advocating for slavery. He's saying that things are so bad because of what the government has done to the black community that it makes you ask the question. That's all he was saying. It makes you wonder. Do you realize how bad things have to be? And again, he was basing this on what he'd observed, what he'd witnessed. He'd seen it with his own eyes. Do you realize how bad things would have to be in order for even the question to pop up in somebody's mind whether these same people would be better off under slavery? Just the fact that the question entered his mind has got to tell you how desperate things are in the black community. And he says, look, this is the government's fault. The government is adopting policies that are making males irrelevant as husbands and as fathers. Now, Cliven Bundy, so we'll move on to the Cliven Bundy thing. I'll play the soundbite, then we'll take your calls, 888-589-8840. Cliven Bundy has a bodyguard. And this is interesting to me because the big thing about Cliven Bundy yesterday is what a vile racist he is. Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, everybody dumping on this guy. What a vile, absolute racist this guy is. Don't have anything to do with him. Get as far away from him as you can. This guy's completely torpedoed his cause and all that. And again, as far as I can tell, I'm the only conservative commentator in America that's come to his defense. Now, he's got a bodyguard, and this bodyguard's name is Jason Bullock. And CNN caught up with this guy. CNN caught up with Jason Bullock. He's a 6-year Army veteran, and he is one of Bundy's bodyguards. So CNN now, Fox has dropped Bundy like a hot potato. They've dropped him like a hot rock. They think he's a vile, bigoted racist. They're not going to have anything to do with him. Sean Hannity's not going to have anything to do with him. So they've washed their hands of Cliven Bundy. So CNN has picked up. CNN wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole until conservatives started tagging him as a vile racist. Then all of a sudden they got very interested. So CNN, this is Dan Simon of CNN. He catches up with Jason Bullock. Now here is the significant thing about Jason Bullock. He's not only a 6-year Army veteran, not only a bodyguard for Cliven Bundy, this guy is black. He is black. And Dan Simon, and he's a bodyguard for Cliven Bundy. And Dan Simon, the CNN guy, is trying to get Jason Bullock to call Cliven Bundy a vile, racist bigot. So here's how their exchange went. It didn't work.
You're protecting this man, and he's wondering whether African Americans would be better off as slaves. How does that strike you?
Doesn't strike me any kind of way. This is still the same old Mr. Bundy I met from the first day of all this happenings.
But aren't those offensive comments to you?
Not at all.
Not offensive?
Because Mr. Bundy is not a racist. Ever since I've been here, he's treated me with nothing but hospitality. He's pretty much treated me just like his own family. I would take a bullet for that man if need be. I look up to him just like I do my own grandfather.
Why?
Because I believe in his cause, and after having met Mr. Bundy a few times, I have a really good feel about him, and I'm a pretty good judge of character.
All right, so that's his bodyguard. I would take a bullet for that man. He is not a racist. He's treated me with nothing but hospitality. He's treated me like a member of his own family. I look up to him like I look up to my own grandfather. I've met him. I feel good about him, and I'm a good judge of character. All right, so that is the vile, bigoted, racist Cliven Bundy, black bodyguard. I would take a bullet for that man. All right, let's go to Darren, Jonesboro, Arkansas. Darren, welcome. What's on your mind?
Thanks, sir. Really, I just kind of want to sort of make a statement, just put a plug in for the Lord's sake. That it's probably off subject, which actually it's not out of subject on any subject, actually. What's happening in our world and in our country is basically lawlessness, if we can look around and see it. We must be blind if we don't see that. But even our law is becoming lawless. And, you know, God said if we'd return to him, just his people that are called by his name would return to him and seek his face and humble ourselves and turn from our wicked way. Then would he hear from heaven and would heal our land. So it's going to start in the church. We know God. We're supposed to. But we also have become lawless. God has a law, and he will never abrogate that law. He'll never put it down, so we can quit kidding ourselves. The law of the Ten Commandments is complete and whole, and it's just and perfect and righteous. And he has not taken any of it away from us. So let's not be higher than God or think that we can, you know, say that and spread and teach that God has taken his law away from us. So.
All right, well, thank you. I appreciate that call. Thank you for that. And, you know, my wife, Debbie, made a post on her Facebook page the other day that I thought was very profound. I'll just start into it. I'll finish the thought on the other side of the break, and we'll take more of your phone calls. 888-589-8840. She came across Proverbs 11:11 in her morning devotions. We do that at the same time in our family room. Through the blessing of the upright, a city or nation is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked it is destroyed. She was captivated by that phrase, through the blessing of the upright, a nation is exalted. Back into